Hello, we are OK&Y podcast, and we have Kenny here, and we have a spoiler from LSS.
Hey
This,
everyone.
yeah, this is gonna be our spoiler.
That was our spoiler. This is a KY podcast. I'm Ichin. Kenny, go ahead and say hi.
Hi everyone. I'm back.
Hey, today we're talking about our spoiler. If you're just here for the spoiler image, you can just scroll back a couple seconds to view it. Otherwise, we're going to spend about a couple minutes talking about the spoiler and talking about our speculation. As of right now, as of recording, we have not seen the hero card or the weapon card. I assume that's going to be coming with DM Armada spoiler later today. Rudy has just posted his spoiler one day early, so we're going to be going off of that and going off of our spoiler card. So, Slay the Scholars is a 0 cost, 4 attack, 3 defense, same rate as Wounding Blow. It has a bit more text though. Most importantly, it has the contract text, which is you are contracted to banish opponent's non-attack action cards. When you complete this contract, create a silver token. A contract is active while it's face up in the arena. I don't know the exact rules just yet, but how that's going to work is the contract is going to remain quote unquote active while it's on the combat chain. Once you close the combat chain or once the turn ends, if you haven't fulfilled the contract, tough luck, it's just going to go to the graveyard. If you are able to banish your opponent's non-attack action cards during that time, you will complete the contract and you'll get a silver token for that card. Obviously, how do you banish your opponent's cards? There's going to be other cards like Talismanic Cremation, other like sources of banish, but most importantly, looks like that most assassin attacks will be banishing the top card of their deck on hit. So if you, for example, play Slay the Scholars red twice, giving the first one go again, if you are able to banish a card from either of those hits that is a non-attack action, you will complete both contracts and you get a silver token for each one. I think that's about it in terms of how this mechanic will probably work. It's going to be like my guess is it's going to be like some sort of fatigue type deck where it's going to banish the opponent's deck on tiny hits that leak through, and you're going to get silver tokens for some other benefit. What do you think, Kenny?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all you said. I do like that. I actually kind of like that it's introducing a fatigue-ish mechanic. I remember early on there were a couple of fan-made classes and stuff, and one of the ones that I made for a while was a poison one, and it was a similar idea where you were milling from the top of the deck. So I think that's kind of cool. I was going to say that just to clarify, I believe that you can actually complete the contract multiple times, right? So if you slay the scholars and then you give it go again somehow, and you slay the scholars again, if both of them hit, and that each time you banish a non-attack action, you'll get a silver token each time. I don't think it's just a one-off complete the contract and that's it.
I want to wait for clarification on that because it does say whenever, which indicates that it can possibly trigger multiple times. But also says when you complete this contract, and it's like kind of hinting that you might be able to only fill it once. I don't know for sure, but if it is, if you can complete it multiple times, that does increase its power level against decks like Wizard, against like Dorinthia, where they're running a lot of non-attack actions, and you're probably hit multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm leaning towards the interpretation at the moment that if you manage to trigger it multiple times, you will get to complete the contract multiple times. So that's kind of the lens I'm working from. Yeah, look, I mean, when I say it's pretty basic, right? I mean that this looks like a pretty baseline attack for Assassin. I mean, it's a common, so we know it's generally just showing the themes that they're going for. It's not going to be too complex, but overall, I think it's interesting. Like, I think it's one of the things I think is quite cool about it is that it obviously wants go again, but doesn't have it.
Yes. So finding go again to basically get multiple contracts out will be the key here, I think. It does remind me a little bit of Lexi, where you have arrows that trigger off of damage. So just like how Lexi is always trying to find ways to trigger its arrows multiple times, maybe Assassin will play something similar to that.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think, as I said, the thing I appreciate most by the design is that, these cards, there's an obvious synergy in that you definitely want action points or go again, but they don't naturally have it. So you've got this option of going, okay, do I play Razor Reflexes? Do I play Lead the Charge? Like there's lots of options on the side there, or time snap potions and that kind of thing. And it reminds me as well with Payday, right? Because Payday doesn't, because the attacks don't naturally have go again, you need to have go again to be able to play Payday as well. So there's clearly something that's that the assassin wants there. I'm really hoping it's not something as easy as the hero has an ability that has go again, or the weapon has an ability that has a go again. I would like to have to try a little bit more, but maybe that's just the Rainer in me who has to try for everything.
Yeah, of course. One thing I think that's interesting to note with the other cards that's been revealed, one, the way that contract is worded means that you can complete the contract in different ways, or there might be different cards later on that have different contracts to complete. So there might be something that says you're contracted to banish your opponent's attack action cards, you're contracted to banish an opponent's blue card, something like that, where you might be able to tailor your deck, maybe not too much, but tailor your deck to your matchup to better trigger your contracts.
Which feels thematic as well, right? In a way, like you're hunting your opponent's deck and that kind of thing. I agree that the way it's worded does seem to indicate that. I would expect that the reward will probably be similar each time, unless the contract is more challenging. Like if it was something, for example, if it was you are contracted to banish opponent's instant cards, I could imagine it paying out a gold or something like that because it's rarer. Or if it was something that was much more common, I could imagine it paying out a copper or something instead. So that's cool.
Yeah. One thing to note is that because this is a common, this will be in all three colors. And most likely we'll have a couple of cycles of these cards that are like basic contract stuff that will make up the bread and butter of the assassin deck. The other thing I want to mention is that you can fulfill the contract in different ways. So cards like I mentioned before, Talisman of Cremation, or if we get some sort of invert existence equivalent where you can just banish opponent's cards from graveyards, that might be an interesting card to include if you want to focus on fulfilling contracts instead of, winning the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being able to, with that talisman, pardon me, I haven't caught up as much, but the talisman, does it remove the graveyard from the game or something like that? Or
it
remove all copies of a certain card?
A card from the graveyard and all cards with the same name as it.
Yeah, that's the one. So, I mean, look, if your opponent has like two, I would say two is pretty common. Like if you have two copies of the same card in their graveyard, that's like 2 silver tokens instantly, and 2 contracts fulfilled just with one card. So yeah, no, that could be pretty exciting, right? As you said, the obvious application is just hit banish top card of their deck, but if there are other ways to do it, then you've got interesting ways to fulfill contracts, which could be really powerful.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, the last thing I actually want to mention, with all this stuff, it does worry me slightly that the assassins will be pulled in various different directions because we need ways to banish cards, we need ways to win the game, presumably, and we need ways to utilize all the silver that we have. We can use silver as just a way to cycle out our blues if you're going to be playing assassin, but I would like to see assassin-specific ways to cash in those silver tokens. Obviously, we have generic ones, cash in and knick-knack bric-a-brac, that are silver payoffs, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get a couple of majestics that will be like, oh, if you have this much silver or you spend this much silver, you can get some cool bonuses.
Oh, yeah, I would be surprised if there were no Haymaker cards that, triggered off silver. That seems to be what you would be building up for, which would be nice.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to add, Kenny, before we sign off?
My thoughts are, with the card at the moment, I suspect that the red and blue versions might see play. Red because, 4 is a nice threshold. Blue because 2 is, 2 is almost the equivalent of 3. But in addition, it's a blue pitch. So I suspect that, of the versions, those 2 are the most likely to see play, provided that it goes the way I think, which will be 0, like pitch for 3, 0 to attack.
Yeah, and if you're playing the Fatigue plan as Assassin, and the blue and the yellow accomplishes the same thing whether you hit or not, because it will always get a card from the opponent. So if your opponent's a very pesky like Bravo player without any way to prevent damage without spending a card, that might be a method that or that might be a choice to play, where you just play all the on-hit banishes and you just get cards from your opponent no matter what.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's it. Stay tuned for more episodes of the OK&Y podcast. This is just a shorter video just to introduce the card, and we're excited as much as you guys are for the next few spoilers. Shout out to LSS for giving us the spoiler card, and hopefully we'll get one more.